Elves have always had one of the best air forces in Total War Warhammer 2 and subsequently in Immortal Empires, of course. The Frostheart Phoenix wasn't always the best component of that. Definitely, though, in Immortal Empires, once it got proper slowing tools, it became a key component to the High Elves dominating the skies. There's plenty of other components as well. In this particular build specifically, we've got the probably the best individual flying single entity in the game. It's hard to say. Certainly there's some hybrid characters that you might argue have more versatility, but purely in terms of combat power, raw melee combat power, Imric is pretty much unrivaled. And yeah, today he's going to be leading Tudella's army. For the rest of the army here, we've got some infantry, White Lions of Trace, some Lothern Sea Guard, a couple of spears in the back line, 3 spears, and a life mage. So no Tempest. Tempest, of course, from Lore of High Magic, not as good as it used to be. Lore of High Magic in general right now is just not the best. I would absolutely advise taking other Lores of Magic pretty much every time, but we're going to see this Air Force put to good effect here against Be'lakor, who is considered the meta by all means, probably one of the best single entities in the game, regardless of flying or anything else. Just incredibly powerful. He's got some Warriors of Khorne with dual weapons, some Marauders, and some heavy Chaos Warriors as well. The Hell Cannon currently taking a breath from the Star Dragon. That is going to burn one of the breaths without completely destroying the artillery piece itself. Some Halberd Warriors in the back, some Hounds here scattered about as well. But basically, because of the Frostbite and the slowing effect here, it's a total of, let's see, yeah, minus 50% speed. Is Frostbite? No, 40% speed. Yeah, 42% speed with those 2 slowing effects. So it's not like Be'lakor can really get away once he gets caught by these 2. And right now, it's just kind of being used to zone him out. Of course, magical damage on the Frostheart Phoenix will bypass Be'lakor's demonic physical resistance. That being said, he's just such a scary combatant with the hard landing here in the middle of these Summoners of Rage, who themselves are elite anti-large AP, can definitely support him quite well. Of course, Lore of Shadows also, nice debuffs with the Dark Master on himself. Like he did not take Enfeebling Foe, which I think is perhaps a mistake, but he does have Shadow Shroud to give himself a relatively short, 20 seconds is still a decent amount of time. Heavy ward save there. But let's see, with the Hell Cannon destroyed by that air skirmish, Imric and his Phoenix can fall back. Of course, it did burn 2 breaths. Again, that's quite a bit of value, and specifically the breaths for Star Dragons are very good against other monsters, right? So those could have been used on Be'lakor perhaps, although it would have been tricky to get him in position to do it properly. That said, still good to just take out that unit in terms of value. You can see the crew is pretty much untouched, but with the artillery piece itself destroyed, that's combat ineffective, right? And it's not necessarily going to reflect in the value, although maybe it does. Hard to say. But anyway, that is going to force its current year to attack now with his forces. Tudela just kind of hanging back for the time being. Is going to skirmish with his bows, going to eat this Pit of Shades to the face, just on a relatively mid-tier infantry though. So that's fine to just eat that. Not the best, but also not the worst. Certainly this staunch line of White Lion should be able to hold out for the time being. Be'lakor also is going to suffer from having low armor in this situation, as the bows of the High Elves will be doing really nice damage to him. Of course, the physical resistance does help with that lack of armor, but still in general, he's relying mostly on that and his high HP overall. Imric is having some trouble pulling out of this situation, though. Almost gets fully surrounded by the Summoners of Rage, but does get a nice regrowth from the Life Mage there. Frostheart Phoenix also debuffing and slowing Summoners, trying to screen, and of course pulling back into his rusty High Elf support units. The Lothern Sea Guard can bust their spears out and try and screen a little bit, but its current year does a good job of getting his Summoners of Rage kind of through and behind so that he can try and block Imric's path of escape. But smartly, Tudela just turns towards his other units to do a secondary screen action here, or even move these spearmen in for a support. But, I mean, Imric can certainly get the job done. These Summoners of Rage have been taking arrows to the knee the entire time they've been trying to chase Imric through the blobs, so definitely taking significant damage over time, taking attacks from the Frostheart Phoenix in the back as well. Nice bit of Shades absolutely blast the middle of this High Elf formation, and as the Marauders and Warriors start to close, the High Elves will have some problems in melee, although certainly with Dragonhorn active, 62 melee attack on those White Lions, they should be trading just fine against the Warriors of Khorne. Looks like we're going to have a Chain Lightning unleashed by the Summoners of Rage that will cut through these White Lions, unfortunately. Absolutely destroys them and starts to turn this around. The balance of power had been tilting slightly against its current year here, but now with Tudela getting multiple units terrified away, and AoE magic damage really proving to be quite effective in breaking up the Elves formation, is going to start to lose out, but so potentially critical error here. These Poison Warhounds are not chasing these routing units off, and you start to get these Lothram Seaguard rallying, the White Lions rallying. They can contribute back in here. Of course, up in the air, Be'lakor is continuing to have problems as he is completely unable to escape. Frostheart Phoenix, absolutely beautiful color palette with this nice sunset here in the background. Man, this game is gorgeous. Anyway, yeah, Be'lakor here being heavily debuffed. Let's see, speed down to 79 with everything. I think Frostbite's still active there. Yeah, no, 52 with Frostbite active. There we go. So, and he's still taking attacks because he's not technically landed here. Finally hard lands and starts to get some attacks into these High Elf Spears, but without the Summoners of Rage, they're hanging around, but they're getting relatively low. Imric manages to get a charge in there. Phoenix also lands, and Be'lakor's having some issues for sure. High Elves also having some leadership issues, though, and Hounds do manage to rout off this Life Mage, so no more healing. That said, Imric is at his healing cap, so it doesn't matter too much. The most important thing on the battlefield by far has been healed. We see another Pit of Shades going off here. Potentially gonna really help out, but I almost might have saved that because these White Lions are going to come in here and help clean up the Summoners of Rage. Decent AP, Dragon Ogres, not Rat Ogres, certainly. They have decent armor, 60 armor, so it's kind of within that range where it's close to the break-even point where you would want armor piercing for most units. Definitely helps in this situation, but just overall solid stats. Lions come in and supports. Phoenix finishes off one of the last of the Summoners. They get terrified away, and Be'lakor just cannot stand against a fully heal-capped Imric, having tanked out an insane amount of damage, brewed an insane amount of value, just absolutely overwhelmed by the amount of HP that is left on the Frostheart and on Imric himself over the rest of the battlefield here. I mean, certainly these Chaos Warriors, Marauders, likely would be able to slog through what's left. Yeah, you know, if all these single entities were removed, White Lions and the remaining Sea Guards and everything else. Finally, this Poison Warhound goes and does what it should have done some time ago, chasing off those Sea Guard and other Spearmen and such. But yeah, ultimately, I think really came down to this very strong Air Force counteracting Be'lakor very well. Now with him going down, immediately most of the Chaos forces start to terrify. Summoners of Rage rout. Will that cascade into full army losses? It's definitely looking very close, but I mean at this point Imric can pretty much just cycle charge the rest of the infantry to death. And yes, the halberds are completely ineffective. Nothing really has the anti-large or armor-piercing damage to take him on, so its current year going to throw in the towel there, and Tudela's now up 2-1 on the series. Go ahead and get to the next games very soon. Just to quickly recap this one, though, both Be'lakor and the Summoners of Rage did their jobs. The rest of the army, a little bit let down here. I mean, certainly some great Poison Warhound value there, chasing some routing units, but we saw a few opportunities where some units came back and maybe had an impact. It's hard to say with the extra sea guards coming back and the lions and so forth, but the lion infantry definitely helping to support quite well. And then obviously a lot of the value here on Imric and the Frostheart. High elf infantry generally very solid. The cost reductions to them just made them that much more cost effective, and Lothern Sea Guard definitely one of those. Unfortunately, on the other side here, the Chaos Warriors, although they tanked very well, they had plenty of HP there in the late game. I don't know that they actually contributed all that much. And I wonder, you know, obviously the plan here was to try and sit back and maybe take advantage of this Hell Cannon. So with that being destroyed without getting really any value at all, there just wasn't a lot of DPS out of this infantry. It was more meant, I think, as a holding force other than Horn with dual weapons. That said, with this build, I think probably it's more beneficial to just go for Great Weapon, regular Great Weapon warriors. They're going to have a little bit more armor-piercing damage to trade with White Lion infantry, which are pretty common in matchup. I mean, Bellicor is going to be enough of a target for the archers to shoot at that they're not likely to try and focus a lot of fire. So it's not like you necessarily need the missile block chance either. I don't know. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Let's go ahead and get to Game 4. Let's see if its current year can survive. Facing elimination in Game 4, its current year turns to the Demon Prince of Slaanesh, making another appearance once again against Malekith, this time mounted on a Cold One. Its current year also brings some spawn and plenty of horsemen and Hellstriders, while Tudella's Malekith relies more on Scourge Runner chariots and skirmish units. Instead of hunting Malekith directly, the Demon Prince supports the mobility engagement, allowing the Slaanesh forces to overwhelm the Dark Elves, and once isolated in the late game, goes to finish Malekith personally. With that, its current year forces a Game 5. Stay tuned tomorrow for that. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't. Like this, share it with a friend if you found it entertaining or informative. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.